my wife, Charlene, and her little lover boy are going to find themselves humiliated and destroyed as a result of what I am about to do. It should be clear to her that I will not put up with a wife who cheats on me. We were getting closer to my house, and my plan was about to be put into action then. As the afternoon progressed, Charlene and Howard were going to have a difficult time. Bubba is not someone you should mess with. Permit me to refresh your memory and bring you up to speed on how we arrived at this predicament. Bubba Clarence Jones is my full name, but everyone just calls me Bubba. At least, they find it more convenient. If anyone calls me Clarence, well, let's just say that everyone is aware of the fact that he is not. 20 years ago, Charlene became my wife. Together, we have been together since we were 12 years old, and we are both 42 years old. Our only date has been with each other. We have never gone out with anyone else. During our time in junior high and senior high, we were inseparable. Charlene was the person in charge of cheerleading, and I was the captain of the football team. We were the ideal couple in every way. Our wedding took place as soon as we received our high school diplomas. We reside in a town of average size that is located in the heart of oil country in Texas. During this time, Charlene decided to become a stay-at-home mother, and I found work as a roustabout for a drilling company. Right away, we were blessed with a couple of sons. Charlene is the most stunning woman you will ever come across in your life. Those long legs of hers are my favorite, especially the way she wraps them around my waist. Charlene and I began having sexual encounters during our sophomore year of high school. At first, we were pretty awkward, but we quickly learned how to please each other in a variety of ways. Over the course of the next 3 years, we had 2 children. Charlene had a difficult time delivering the second child, so we decided to stop having sexual encounters. I had a vasectomy so that we wouldn't have to worry about carrying another child. Now, I don't want to brag, but I'm pretty damn good with sex. I have witnessed Charlene's eyes roll to the back of her head with orgasms that cause her to scream. Of course, she does the same for me. Even after all these years where we have been together, we still do that, which makes it so difficult for me to figure out why she cheated on me. A couple of years prior to that, I started my own business, which was an oil well site prep company. There was very little competition in Texas, so it didn't take long for my business to take off. I started making pretty good money, so we moved out of our trailer and built a real nice house in a very nice neighborhood. We are doing well financially, and Charlene really enjoys her job. After our children entered junior high school, Charlene made the decision that she wanted to get a job. She went to a junior college to become a paralegal, and then she got a job with a local law firm that specializes in oil and gas leases and other oil-related issues. She went on to become a paralegal. I told you that I was doing well. I never really worried about Charlene while I was traveling because she worships the ground I walk on. However, I guess she got an itch that needed to be scratched about 4 months ago. My business requires that I travel some because my company works in Texas, New Mexico, and some of Louisiana. Charlene's law firm hired this guy, about 30 years old, right out of law school. He was young, very good-looking, but married with 2 small kids. His name was Howard Bishop. Charlene went on and on about how smart and wonderful he was. I met him at the firm's Christmas party last month. I could tell he thought his didn't stink. He treated me like some old roughneck or something. Truth is, I could buy and sell him in a heartbeat. Charlene was drinking and hung around him all night long. She danced quite a few dances with him. I could tell his wife was not really happy either. I still figured Charlene was just drunk and let it go. Besides, when we got home, Charlene jumped me. She was so horny I could hardly keep up. But of course, I did. I asked her if she had the hots for this young Laurie. I am confident that you would never cheat on me, and I am also confident that you would not tolerate it if I were to cheat on you. It was approximately 2.5 weeks ago when I received a phone call from one of the employees from the shop. The caller introduced himself as Earl and said, "Bubba, this is Earl. At this moment, I am in the alley that is located behind your house, and there is a luxurious BMW car parked close to your residence. Bubba, you obviously did not purchase a BMW, did you?" A resounding no. Earl, is it true that you have never seen me driving anything other than a stinking pickup truck? No, Bubba, I didn't think that was the case. There is a good chance that the car looks like it is at your residence. I don't understand why Charlene would have her park in the backyard if she has a girlfriend over. Bubba, it seems a little fishy, Earl said. Earl, what color is the car, is what Earl asked. Bubba, it's red, your mother said. Wait a minute. Earl, I want you to park in a place where he won't notice you and see if a guy makes his way out of my house to that car. I think I remember that new lawyer driving away from the party in a red car. It was approximately 45 minutes later when Earl called back and said, Bubba, I hate to tell you this, but a fancy-looking young guy came out of your back door. Earl had followed my instructions and used a pair of binoculars to see the back door to my house. He then called back because he heard something. Charlene was standing just inside the door, Bubba, and I could make out her silhouette. Not only was she dressed in her robe, but it was also the middle of the afternoon. It is going to be a day she will come to regret the day she was born if she continues to play pranks on me with that little nuisance. When I am finished with him, he is not going to be worth very much either. Make sure you don't mess with Bubba. I got home the next day and then drove over to Midland to this spy store a guy told me about. I had to get the goods on them before I did anything. I bought this bedroom spy cam that looked like an alarm clock. Charlene would probably not even notice it. It was motion activated. I also bought some software that allowed me to listen to her phone calls. When her phone would ring or she made a call, I could hear it on my phone. I don't know how it works, or care, I just want to know what she is doing. The camera would record anything in the room as soon as someone walked in. If they did, I would have the goods on them. I got home that evening and made the decision to see if Charlene would give in to my advances. It wasn't that I wanted seconds, I just wanted to see her reaction. She said that she was too tired and not in the mood, and I believe that I had the answer to my question. Sunday night, I announced I was going out of town again for a couple of days. She acted disappointed, but I don't think it was sincere. I kissed her goodbye the next morning and left. As soon as I left, she called Howard. She told him I was going out of town again. He told her they would get together that afternoon. He would park in the alley again. As much as I hated to do it, I had to let them go through with it. I needed the evidence. It was beginning to dawn on me that my marriage was probably over. I did go to a job site that was approximately 100 miles away, and then I spent the night in a motel. I got drunk that night, and I also found myself crying as I tried to sleep. The following day, I came home while Charlene was at work. I checked my recording device to see what it recorded. I hoped for the best, but I expected the worst. I downloaded the recording to my laptop, and it showed Howard and Charlene in our bed. The quality of the video clearly identified both of them. Although I did not think Howard was as good as I was, she seemed to enjoy it. It was now obvious that my marriage was over, but not before I had to exact some revenge. When they were getting dressed, I was able to overhear their conversation, which went as follows: Charlene, you are one hell of a good lie. You are someone I wish my wife could be like. She won't even give me a blowjob, Howard said. Thank you, Howard. I really appreciate it. You are not a bad person yourself, Charlene said. Yeah, I gave you a good one, baby. I bet it was better than that redneck husband of yours, Howard said. Now, Howard, don't ever say anything about Bubba, he reiterated. In addition to being an incredible lover, Bubba is someone I love with all of my heart. According to her, he is a wonderful husband, a wonderful father, and he brings me a great deal of joy. If that is the case, then why did you consent to let me into your bedroom? Bubba and I have been together since we were 12 years old, Howard said. Since we were both 16 years old, I've been with him. Aside from Bubba, I have never been with anyone else. I guess I was just curious, Howard, and you were so charming and attentive to me even though I was just curious. It seems that I just had this itch, and I wanted you to scratch it. How about you? You have a high level of education and sophistication, and I was curious about what it would be like to be there. Moreover, despite the fact that you are 12 years younger than me, you still find me attractive and sexy, she stated. Charlene, you are one sexy lady, the speaker said. How much longer are we going to continue doing this, despite the fact that you are getting older? I know one thing, Bubba will never find out, he said. I know this for sure. In that case, he would put an end to both of us. Come on, Charlene, just one more time, she said. Because I believe that this ought to be the end of it. In the event that he leaves once more, let's do it one last time. Because of this, we will never do it again. The itching will have been alleviated, and I will never inquire about it again unless, of course, you ask me to do so. It is important to keep in mind that I am also married, and I am well aware that if my wife discovered the truth, she would take me to the cleaners. I'm not sure, Howard, I said. I would hate to put it in jeopardy for such a long period of time, but I suppose one final goodbye would be acceptable. I am certain that Bubba will be required to depart once more later on this week. She stated that if he does, then we will find a way to make this final one a successful one. They left the room, and the camera turned off. So, it was just an itch that needed to be scratched. They weren't in love with each other or anything else, it was just a case of lust. I've had a few itches over the years, but I've never even come close to scratching them. They were about to find out that you don't mess with Bubba. I went back to the shop and waited for some of my boys to enter. I needed some assistance with this matter. I came up with an idea that even surprised me. I called Earl and told him to get Leon and Tiny and meet me at the shop. These were 3 large oil men, with Tiny being the largest of the 3. Tiny was approximately 6 feet 6 inches tall and weighed approximately 320 pounds. In addition to this, they were extremely loyal to me and would go to any lengths for me. Immediately after they arrived, I sat them down and went over everything with them. It was hard for them to believe that Charlene could put me through that. Upon hearing about the videos, each and every one of them immediately stood up and expressed their desire to view it. Do you simply wish to see Charlene in her underwear? Please take my word for it, she did something with that affluent attorney that she ought not to have done, and we will soon wish that she had not done it. It seems that boys will always be boys. Following the completion of my explanation of what I desired for them to do, they departed, giggling about how much fun they were going to have. That evening, I made an effort to be as normal as I possibly could. I went so far as to make a push on Charlene. I was simply interested in observing her response. She stated that she was not in the mood, just like she had done the previous time. My guess is that she was concerned that I would notice something to her. I let her know that I would be leaving for another overnight shift the day after tomorrow. The only thing she did was shrug and say, okay. The following day, I made the trip to Midland in order to meet with a lawyer that I was familiar with. In addition to drafting the divorce papers, we also prepared the lawsuit that I would be filing against Charlene's employers. His representative would be present the following day when we surprised Charlene and Howard. Everything was in place, let's have a look at whether or not they have that one last kiss. My behavior that evening was very subdued. When my marriage came to an end, I am sure I felt a great deal of sadness. Even Charlene inquired as to whether or not there was a problem. I had just informed her that I wasn't feeling very well, so I went back to my room and went to sleep. Consequently, this brings me back to the point where I began this story. There were no problems whatsoever. There was Earl and Leon in the truck that I was driving. As per my instructions, Earl was in possession of the rope, duct tape, and 2 sturdy chairs. With the enormous forklift in tow, Tiny was riding in the truck and trailer that belonged to the company. Tiny had a lot of experience operating forklifts. While I was driving by the alley, I checked to see if Howard was there. A closer look revealed that his BMW was parked close to the rear of my house. After giving Tiny the instruction to park down the alley, I instructed him to bring his forklift to Howard's vehicle. After he had moved his forklift into position, he was supposed to wait for my signal. While I was driving back to the front of my house, I did not park in the front of the house itself. Upon exiting the truck, I was followed by Earl and Leon, who brought the chairs, rope, and duct tape with them. As we approached the front door, I called Tiny and instructed him to carry out his portion of the plan while we made our way inside the house. I then proceeded to make our way inside. The small BMW that Howard owned was transported to the community pool at the end of the block by Tiny, who used his forklift to transport it. It featured a gate that was just the right size for the forklift to easily pass through. Tiny proceeded to place Howard's car in the pool after he had first cut the lock with his bolt cutters he had brought with him. In the meantime, we progressed to my bedroom by ascending the stairs. The sounds that we could hear coming from within the room became more audible as we got closer. Although the door was only partially closed, I was able to catch a glimpse of Charlene riding Howard in a cowgirl style. The moment I had caught them, they were in the middle of what they were doing. I signaled to Earl and Leon that they should go pick up Howard first. After tying him to the chair, they were going to tape his mouth with duct tape. When Howard was safe, Charlene would be the next person to arrive. When we entered the room, we were yelling. Charlene screamed, "Bubba, oh God, no. Bubba, I can explain. Bubba, I am so sorry, please don't hurt Howard." They tied Howard up because I instructed them to do so, and then they tied Charlene to the other chair, but they did not tape her mouth. Even though I was aware that they were staring at my naked wife, I couldn't help but think that she wouldn't be my wife for much longer. They moved Howard to the back of my truck and placed him in the pickup bed after they had taken him down there. They proceeded to fasten his chair to the headache rack after that. As I approached Charlene, I drew up a chair and sat down in front of her. She was crying and kept saying, "Bubba, I'm so sorry. I did a stupid thing, and I'm so sorry." She was apologizing for her actions. As tears streamed down my cheeks, I asked Charlene, "Charlene, I just want to know why? Am I a bad husband? Am I a bad lover? Why would you do this to me, to us, and to our family?" These questions were asked with tears streaming down my cheeks. "Bubba, I know this looks bad, but I still love you so much. Howard was just a little fling that meant nothing. This was the last time we were going to get together, I swear. I was just curious about what someone like him would be like in bed. He made me feel good about myself, but he is nowhere near the lover you are. It may have just been a little fling to you, Charlene, but you have hurt me pretty bad. We've been together a long time, and you had to go ruin everything for a little fling," I said in response. "No, Bubba, you have to forgive me. I will do anything. It was just an itch I needed to scratch. I'm sorry you found out, I never wanted to hurt you," she stated in response. "Charlene, I've had an itch every now and then, but I didn't scratch. I have always been faithful to you. I have always worshipped the ground you walk on. Then you go for some younger, smooth-talking lawyer, and in our own bed. I'm sorry, Charlene, but this is unforgivable," I said in response. As I walked through the door, I could see Earl and Leon waiting there. During the time that I was applying the duct tape to Charlene's mouth, she continued to cry and beg me repeatedly. We brought her down to the rear of the truck and positioned her next to Howard after we had carried her downstairs. Then I turned my attention to Howard after I had secured her to the headache rack. Fear was evident in the tears that were streaming down his cheeks, and I could tell that he was completely terrified. I expressed my concern to both of them. "You are about to experience some of the humiliation I feel right now. I don't know if you ever read or saw the movie The Scarlet Lette, but you are about to experience it firsthand." I turned my attention directly to Howard and said, "You ought to be more aware than to mess with the wife of another man. After today, I don't think you will ever do it again." I hung a sign around both of their necks that read, "I cheated on my wife," and hers read, "I cheated on my husband." I also hung a large sign on both sides of the truck that read, "Adulterers," and it was painted in red. While we were driving through the downtown area, I began honking my horn continuously. A number of individuals were pointing, some appeared horrified, others were laughing, and still others were disgusted by the display. After pulling up, we arrived at the offices of the law firm where Howard and Charlene were employed. After honking, a number of people, including the senior partner, emerged from the building. The moment I stepped out of my truck, I made my way over to him. I thought you might be interested in seeing what two of your employees were doing this afternoon during their lunch break. At the same time, a representative of the law firm that I hired walked over to him and served him with my lawsuit. Later on, he made his way over to Charlene and presented her with the divorce papers. She was bound, so I untied one of her arms so that she could take them. Of course, she was bound. Following that, I secured it and informed Charlene that I would keep them until we arrived at the residence of her parents. While she was leaving, she shook her head and made an effort to convince me to drop her. Following that, we drove to Howard's residence after the senior partner walked over to Howard and Charlene and yelled, "You're fired." It would have been better if you had seen the expression on his face when we pull up. Following my exit from the truck, I made my way to the entrance. Following his wife's response, I provided her with an explanation of everything and gave her a copy of the video. 2 young children were standing behind her at the time. The fact that she needed to see her husband for who he truly was something that I felt a lot of sympathy for. He was removed from the pickup truck by Leon and Earl, who then laid him down in the yard. Despite the fact that she was crying, she walked over to him and slapped him as hard as she could. She then went back inside after giving Charlene a glare that contained a lot of filth. I informed her that I believe Howard's car slipped out of gear in the alley behind my house and rolled into the swimming pool at the end of the block just before she entered the building. I said this right before she entered the building. At the time that we decided to leave, Howard was still seated there. Charlene was still in the back of the truck when we left, and we drove to her parents' house using the vehicle. My first step was to go to the door, but Monroe and Mildred were already there waiting for me. I told them everything that had happened and offered them video evidence if they were interested in seeing it. Charlene was the one who was at fault, and I made sure they were aware that I was not joking around. They looked at their daughter, and then they simply shook their heads in agreement. Monroe expressed his regret, "Bubba, we are so sorry our daughter did this to you. You have been a good husband to her and a great son-in-law to us. Is there any way that you might possibly forgive Charlene? I know she still loves you." "Sorry, Monroe, there is no way I could ever trust her again. I have tried to be as good a husband as a man can be for her, and this is how she repays me. I watched her on video have sex with Howard in our own bed, then I catch them red-handed in our own bed. No, I can never forgive that," I said in response. Mildred responded by saying, "We understand, Bubba, and I guess we don't blame you." Charlene was freed from her shackles, and I took her to her parents. I removed the tape from her mouth, and she responded by saying, "Please, Bubba, I am so sorry. I promise I will never do anything like that ever again." I realize now just how stupid it was, and for nothing really. He wasn't nearly as good a lover as you. I will do anything if you will just give me another chance. She was asking for forgiveness. The fact that she was standing there naked and pleading with me to take her back was certainly adorable. I was on the verge of giving in, but then I recalled that you should never mess with Bubba. "Sorry, Charlene, I just can't. I'm leaving you here with your parents. You can come get all your stuff from the house tomorrow when I'm at work. I will be in touch about the divorce. I will split everything with you, but I keep all my business. Don't try to contest anything or that video will go viral." I transferred Charlene to the care of her parents. She agreed to everything that was said in the petition for divorce. As Charlene stayed with her parents, I was responsible for keeping the house. I suppose I was pretty harsh on her, but she made a significant error and had to pay the consequences for it. The lawsuit that I had filed against her employer was eventually dismissed. I simply did not want to put any effort into it. Above all else, I was attempting to make a point. After a year had passed, I started to miss Charlene a great deal. It was time for me to move on from all of my humiliation and anger. In all honesty, I didn't date anyone, and I wasn't even interested in dating anyone. It had been a few times that I had been laid, but nothing of significance. The majority of the time, it was during business trips that took place outside of town, and it consisted of one-night stands. Mildred wanted to talk to me and have lunch with me, so she called me first. Because I was interested in learning more about Charlene, I gave my consent. Not only had it been a considerable amount of time since I had last spoken to her, but when I finally did, all she wanted to do was apologize. To my knowledge, Charlene was still residing with them, as Mildred informed me. A couple of attorneys in a nearby town had offered her a new position, and she had accepted it. It turned out to be a couple of elderly gentlemen who were in need of a competent legal hand. The new job was ideal for her. Mildred informed me that Charlene would not even consider dating anyone. At all times, she was being asked out by people, but she declined their advances. She continued to hold out hope that I might at some point want her back. That I have forgiven Charlene and that I miss her was something that I shared with Mildred. Despite the fact that it took me some time, I was eventually able to comprehend everything. I communicated with her. Now, Mildred, I am not promising anything, but I would like to call Charlene and maybe get together for a drink or something. I never actually gave her much of a chance to talk after I caught them. I was just too angry and hurt by what she did. Bubba, that would be great if you could just sit down with her and listen to what she wants to tell you. She knows she made a huge mistake, and she paid a price for it. Okay, Mildred, I think I finally can sit down and hear her out. I will give her a call. During that afternoon, I picked up the phone and called Charlene to schedule a meeting with her for that evening at a local bar that we had frequented in the past. Not surprisingly, Charlene was ecstatic. Mildred gave me a call a short while later to express her gratitude and to convey to me how thrilled Charlene was about the prospect of finally getting together with me. When I arrived, I was a little early, so I grabbed a beer for myself and we found a small table away from everything else where we could have a conversation. When Charlene finally entered the room, I did a double take. She had a stunning appearance. Her hair had grown out to the same length as it had been when she was in high school, she had lost some weight, and she was dressed very nicely. As soon as she walked through the door, every single man in the establishment turned around and stared at her. I went over to meet her and greet her. "Hello, Charlene. I must say you look so beautiful. It is good to see you." I gave her a hug to comfort her. The hug lasted for approximately 10 seconds, during which time she encircled my neck with her arms. When she said, "It's really nice to see you too, Bubba. You look pretty good yourself. I can't tell you how excited I was that you called." She had tears in her eyes as she spoke those words. We made small talk for a few minutes, then Charlene said, "Bubba, I have spent the past year trying to figure out why I did what I did. I have no excuses, and I have accepted responsibility for what I did. You don't know how many nights I have cried myself to sleep because of the pain and humiliation I caused our family and the fact that I lost the man I love most in my life. I had no feelings for Howard. Yes, he was a smooth talker. He told me things I liked to hear. I'm convinced he did manipulate me in a way I will never understand." She was crying a little bit now, so she stopped to get a Kleenex out of her purse. She continued by saying, "I love you, Bubba, more than anything in this world. I would give anything to turn back the clock. I know the kids were pretty mad at me at first, but they soon realized how I regretted my mistake and have forgiven me. I think what I need most is to hear you say that you can forgive me. If you can, then I will step aside and let you move on with your life." "You're right, Charlene. I was humiliated, and I was so hurt by what you did. It's hard to watch a video of the woman you love so much for so long with another man. I was also mad at you, which is why I punished the both of you the way I did. I'm sorry for that. It was probably a little over the top." I took a sip of beer and continued speaking. I was finally able to come to grips with everything and realize that I could forgive you. I still love you, but I can never trust you. I can still see you with that guy in my nightmares. She continued to cry and held my hand as she spoke. I took her hand in mine and told her, "I really want to get back with you, but in another lifetime. I wish that you remained faithful to me." At this point, tears were streaming down my eyes. I had previously expressed my desire to reunite with her. After getting up, I went outside. As I approached the entrance, I turned around and saw her staring at me with tears in her eyes, with a tearful expression. My hand was raised, and I waved goodbye for the very last time. It was a challenging task. My heart was in pain. It was as if I had knives in my heart, but I had no choice but to proceed with this. First and foremost, she should have known better than to mess with Bubba. Let's hope she picked up some valuable lessons. Listener, if you have made it this far, I would appreciate it if you would click the button that says subscribe. This will be of great assistance.